Hi, I'm Agnes. Welcome to CWM TV. We are filming from the Council of World Mission Studios at the Singapore headquarters. Now, recently, CWM celebrated Training in Mission's 40th anniversary service. Our former TIM participants, partners, and CWM staff gathered online for this big milestone. Today, we'll be talking to a former TIM participant, Christopher Latchman, who was from the 2019 batch. All right, Chris, thank you for joining us today for a chat. Firstly, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself, what you're currently doing, and what's your current involvement in the CWM member church, Guyana Presbyterian Church?
Hello, I'm Christopher Latchman, and I'm from the Guyana Presbyterian Church, a very small place called Essequibo. And this is well noted for its exotic forests and black water. The thing is, I grew up in a really weird place. I say weird because I feel like I was always a troublemaker. I feel one of the things is I would not be as smart as other people in my class, so I just started asking all the irrelevant questions. And I was usually punished for this. And I think this is an essential part of my journey as not conforming to the status quo of how things are. And it was during this time that I also graduated as a pursuing a career in the teaching. And so I'm actually trained as a high school teacher in science, agriculture, and sports.
Oh.
And also I became interested in the church and the relevant history of the church. And I was also curious about the generational gaps and how we can transform the youth participation in the church and try to avoid all unnecessary problems between generational gaps and especially when it comes to youth participation. So relatively, I was called to attend the CANACOM, which is the Caribbean and the United States and some parts of Canada as well, in making representation for the youths. And this is where I was introduced to the CWM program.
That's amazing. Right. So you were coming back to TIM. You were from the 2019 batch. So you learnt about it from CANACOM. Yeah. And so what spurred you? Because you learnt about it, but what actually spurred you to sign up for it?
Yeah. So I was interested very much in the church and the history of it and how it really plays out. I was also very much involved in youth work and just trying to decipher some of the problems that we have within our own churches. So in signing up for the Training and Mission program, I had done some research and I found out that the concern of the Council for World Mission revolves around the decolonial and a transformative space in relation to mission and specifically with peoples from the margin. And this is where I come from. So the framework of our program was fixed around mission in the context of empire. So studying about the unjust realities in the Caribbean, and especially against the usual grain of the problem, just excited me in wanting to learn more and deciphering how empire has created the problems of poverty, of racism, and of marginality. I think that fresh perspective was what I expected or what I was hoping for and what inspired me to go into this program.
Right. So the youth work, you're talking about your church, Guyana Presbyterian Church. Right. Okay. So where was your training held for TIM?
We actually spent 2.5 months in New Zealand, just about that, and 2 months in Fiji, and then
Okay.
2 months in South Korea. Correct? Yeah.
Wow. So really all over the world in that sense. I mean, these are different contexts.
Sure. Yeah. And then we have our own backgrounds coming into this too. So we had a little bit of taste of everybody, of all the cultures. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be coming back to that in a short while. But before we go on further, what were some of your expectations before the training commenced? Your own thoughts about what would go on and
Well, I didn't expect it to be challenged.
yeah,
Yeah, but that's one of the most obvious things I should say. I was challenged a lot,
yeah.
but my expectations, I just wanted to learn the conservative Christianity, and
Okay.
I wanted to feel more feel more strong in my faith and all uh, these conventional Christian thoughts about
Mm. Okay, because you mentioned about your troublemaker background, which I'll also touch on in a short while. So you mentioned about the fact that you went to three, as a team batch, you went to three different places, and coupled with that was the fact that your teammates are from different contexts. So how was this missional discipleship with your batchmates? How was it? Because you were together with them for a few months. Was it always rosy and dandy?
Oh, yes, it was. No, kidding. Terrible. We had some we had a lot of disagreements during our time. I think and this is I think this was something that I think that we cannot learn from the curriculum or learn from the guides, but when you spend time with people, you learn every it was 6 months of being together, so you were away from your own context. So it feels like you were, in this place where you had to be different and you had to just try to get along. And some people, I think, from our batch did not have that kind of experience where they see different
Mm,
people before. Well, I
mm,
come from a multicultural zone, so I kind of was able to gel a little bit and understand and
yes,
be.
yes.
The excitement was there for many people too, to want to be a part of this experience where you get to learn from other people.
Okay,
So we didn't have such a good time because of all the fightings, but I think that was
okay.
helped with things too, because we had a lot of fightings. Yeah.
Yep. And how many people, how many team participants were there in your batch?
We were, I should know this, we were 11.
11 of you. Right, right. Okay. And maybe could you, if you were to use three adjectives to describe your batch, because each batch would be different, right? So, what three characteristics would best sum up your batch, given the different backgrounds?
Hmm. Um, Three characteristics to
Yeah.
describe. I would say we were dynamic. Um,
Dynamic.
yeah, that's one of the adjectives I would use.
Yep.
Dynamic, creative, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, I think we were talented.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I can see where the creativity is involved. And then what about in terms of spiritual transformations? Did you witness that within your batchmates and then personally as well over those months together from day one to towards the end?
Yeah, I think I mentioned before that I came into this as like the troublemaker, right? But I think
Mm.
I was challenged, and I think that was supposed to be my job, but it ended up being the council's job to trouble me. So I
Hmm.
think this kind of I think many of us had this experience where we were challenged, and challenge leads to change in some aspects. So I think a lot of us went through a lot of um, I would say in depth spiritual transformation.
Interesting, interesting. So it's already been 3 years. Are you still in touch? I mean, apart from being reunited during the recent anniversary celebration, are you still in touch with your other team batchmates?
Yeah, one of the problems is that because of our location, sometimes it's difficult to have an internet connection, and the time difference is also a
Mm,
problem. But we are in touch. We do happen to talk every once in a while.
mm,
I think friendships were built in this program that
yes,
um, cannot be ended because of how much 6 months of our entire life. I mean, six
yeah,
months
that's right.
in intense study and just being seeing each other every day. So we
Yeah,
became really close, I think, and that's difficult. It doesn't matter like if you don't talk to each other for like a week or something. we do happen to just check up every once in a while.
Yeah, those, yeah. I can imagine those bonds are very solid. Yeah, regardless of time or place, right? It can't be broken so easily. Great. I watched the Tim 40 celebrations on YouTube, and yeah, you were asked to share about your reflections. And you mentioned this concept of troublemakers, which you were challenged as a Tim participant at the beginning. How have you been making trouble in your context? And I understand that you're now in Korea. So how does that translate for you? How has the Tim teaching been helpful for you now?
Um, well, when I was in Guyana before, I was always looking at, a Western perspective of how people in the Caribbean should live their lives. But now ever since I was a part of the training and mission program, I feel more challenged to look back into my context and try to find, profits of my own time and profits within my everyday experience.
Right.
So I think I'm now challenged to look not on the surface of what I see, but to go a little bit deeper against the grain in trying to find the problems of the Caribbean, such as, poverty and racism and
Yep.
gender injustice, which is one of the biggest problems leading to the deaths of many of our prophets. So, and I'll probably just share with you two of these. And one prophet was, Walter Rodney, who was who challenges society into breaking free from the empire. And I also can recall Bob Marley, who sang Lewi Chantong Babylon.
We chant down Babylon music. We chant down Babylon music.
So these are solidarity movements that I feel very much confident in being a part of, and which motivate me to go beyond the societal grain, which rising to life experience, which is the theme of CWM right now.
That's right. That's right. And you mentioned something earlier on about that interest in interaction of the intergeneration. So, in light of this idea of going against the grain, do you find yourself having very peaked conversations with the older generations? Do you find yourself in disagreement? Do you agree to disagree? And does that lead to a very heated conflict?
Well, I was yeah, I mean, if you look at the problems, it eventually you will find, if there's nothing, you will find some problems. If you that's what the lens you go into looking for something.
Yes.
So this is what I learned also from one of my a favorite scholar of mine. His name is Casey Abrahams, which I learned here in South Korea. Is there's no such thing as a poor Christian, or well, a hungry Christian, or a hungry Muslim, or a hungry Hindu person, but if you look at it, they're just hungry people and they want some food. So in this kind of analogy, when we're trying to mediate ideas of having a connection, then it's easier to look at the solutions rather than looking at the problems. Looking at the stereotypical understandings of the problems.
All right. So, Chris, can you tell me more about the churches in the Caribbean? What's the current state in the context of COVID and just the youth?
Yeah, I think the youth generally, not only in the Caribbean but also many parts of the world, do experience a very difficult time growing up in the church, because they're usually shut down and blame most of the time because of their their hyperactivity sometimes. But in the Caribbean, we do experience the problem of youth participation becoming a problem because of competition with other social kind of activities, like
Mm,
going to a concert or choosing to go out with your friends instead of going to church and being involved in
right,
church. So
right.
the problem of participation is becoming a problem, and especially in Guyana, where I come from, um, and trying to bridge those gaps, I think is one of the key concerns at this time of the church. Yeah.
And what are some ways, just from your team participation, how do you think, if when you go back, what would be some of the things that you would suggest to the churches to really attract and to maintain or to keep it real for the youth?
If well, I will answer this question in the form of like a metaphor. So
Mm,
when we think about the problems of poverty in the Caribbean, we usually try to think that the conventional idea before was that the problem of the poor was, their fault, that they're not working hard enough. But then
mm,
I've been in areas where I've seen that the people in the Caribbean are the hardest working people, but they're still poor. So the question is, we need to stop playing this blame game. And this is the same idea or approach I think we can apply for the youths too. Show them that they have a kind of sort of value, they can contribute something, that not everything that they're saying or doing is on a negative spectrum or should be viewed as rebellious and troublemaker in many ways. So I think this is one of the things that should be kind of looked into, and there are a few leaders within the Caribbean who kind of is prone to this idea of youth participation. Let them, finding ways to let them be active, um, that represents the values.
So, and earlier on, you mentioned that your Tim batch were dynamic, creative, and talented. What about some of these traits? Um, Music, arts, is that something that you think can attract the youth into, for participation?
Definitely, yeah. And this, I think this is where we felt so comfortable because during our reflections, we had the chance to choose, how we're gonna share our reflections. If we're gonna, after coming from a class or something, how do you reflect what you learn? And the conventional idea, I'm saying about uh, writing a 5-page reflection or something, which is important.
Yes.
But then we were also reflected our ideas through songs, most of the times, also through painting. We had that in or poetry, and I think this is making space for those people who like to do things the other way.
That's right. That's right. And then even poems, or in the context of zillennials and millennials, TikTok, Instagram, right? Okay, that's very interesting. Is there anything else that you would like to share in terms of your the impact that Tim has had on you personally and in your ministry?
I think empowerment, I just want to say in one word, is something that I gained through this experience, to rise up and to come out of negative attributes that tend to deprive the rising to life experiences. Um,
Mm,
so this blame game is a common game that's played, um, and it's usually used to entrap people. So I think finding a way to empower and come out of that struggle, I think, is one of the key reflections I want to share. Yeah.
okay, thank you for sharing. Um, I just want to round up. Obviously, we would have a lot of young CWM church members watching today's segment, and some of them might be really keen on signing up, but they might have some hesitations. Um, what would you say to them? For those that are thinking about signing up for Tim?
Don't be afraid to be a troublemaker. And don't be afraid to look within your own society and find the profits of your time. and how they would speak to the problems of the culture, instead of trying to look beyond to other cultures and stuff, trying to find answers. I think to look within your own surrounding, I think, and giving life to your own people. I think that's one of the troubling uh, responses, I would say. Don't be afraid to be a troublemaker.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so after your stint in Korea, are you going back to the Caribbean, and are you going to go back as a teacher, a high school teacher, or what's the plan?
Yeah, one of the tricky things about it is that we really don't have any seminaries in Guyana. So I think yeah, I'm interested in creating programs to deal with different social issues. So I think
Right.
I'll work along that lines. Yeah.
Okay. All the best, Chris. Thank you so much. So we've come to the end of today's spotlight on our former TIM participant, Christopher Latchman. So tune in for more interesting CWM TV interviews. Thank you, everyone.